Okay, so let's talk about Hilma af Klint, a pioneer and founder of abstract art who you may have never heard of. I thought her name sounded familiar when I stumbled upon her a while back, but obviously I didn't know anything about her because I definitely would have remembered everything I am about to share about Hilma. So Hilma was a Swedish artist born in 1862, and she is considered to be one of the first abstract artists, as in before Kandinsky and Mondrian and some of these other male artists who typically come to mind when we think of the pioneers of abstract art. But things get so much more mind-blowing from there, so just bear with me. So af Klint's art started out being pretty traditional. She did landscapes, botanical drawings, and portraits, and as you can see, they're all pretty good by conventional standards. So the transition into abstract art was definitely a choice, and a pretty revolutionary one at that for the time, since it's something that most likely she had never seen before. Most people had never seen before. And it was definitely not from a limitation of technique or talent. And during those early years of her art, she was studying at the Royal Academy of Fine Arts, so she did have formal training. But by 1896, she threw out everything she had learned and started painting the invisible worlds hidden within nature, and her art turned to the spiritual realm and the occult. She privately joined 4 other female artists to form a group called The Five. They conducted seances to encounter what they believed to be spirits who wished to communicate via pictures, leading to experiments with automatic writing and drawing, which predated the Surrealists by several decades. So now, Hilma's not only pioneering abstract art, but also concepts behind Surrealism, both genres which for a long time have been seen as being male-dominated, at least in the way history has remembered them. So here's where it gets real good and crazy and fun. In 1905, af Klint received a commission from an entity, which the group called Amalil, to create her most important body of work, the paintings for the temple. I guess she accepts this commission because she then goes on to create nearly 200 mostly abstract paintings that were divided up into various series and subgroups and explored paths to harmony between the spiritual and material worlds, good and evil, man and woman, religion and science. In these works, we also see how she was influenced by science and religion with things like the discovery of electromagnetic waves and the spiritual teachings of Rudolf Steiner, who was af Klint's mentor and influenced the cycle of her work to be more orderly with the use of symbols and motifs such as shells, snakes, lilies, and crosses, which will all be important for the creative exercise I'm going to throw your way here in a minute. But af Klint didn't seem to have any interest in being famous for these works, or she just didn't think that the world was ready for them yet, because she kept all of this largely private and insisted that none of it be shared publicly until 20 years after her death. What? Like, I am so in love with her. So let's say you wanted to take inspiration from af Klint and turn it into a creative exercise. Here's what I would recommend for all of you visual artists, and I'll have something for all of the creative writers that may be listening here in a minute. And these exercises are best suited to maybe late middle school, high schoolers, and definitely adults. It may be a little too much for our younger artists, but if you want to attempt to adapt something like this for them, you're welcome to, and I may post something like that in the future. But for now, for our late middle schoolers and high schoolers and older, here are a couple of exercises that you can give a try inspired by af Klint. So for our visual exercise, imagine that a mystical entity of some kind has commissioned you to do a large body of work, much like af Klint's paintings for the temple. And like af Klint, you need to use symbols to communicate your own beliefs about the world. Af Klint produced thousands of drawings that explain the meanings behind the symbols in her paintings. Now, you don't need to create thousands necessarily unless you just want to, but for the sake of this exercise, make a list of what you believe about society, nature, the world around us, and the universe at large. That list can be short or long, totally your preference, but then I want you to take that list and assign some symbols to those beliefs and see what it looks like when you start assembling those symbols into abstract drawings or paintings. You can take a look at off Klint's paintings for the temple for inspiration if you'd like, but it could also be fun to work blind and see what you come up with completely on your own, aside from what you've already seen here in this video. Now, for all of you creative writers listening to this, here's a fun exercise to try, and one I'm definitely going to be doing soon. So let's imagine it's just a typical Tuesday night for Hilma. I guess she's gathered with, let's call it what it appears to be, a coven that she's formed called The Five. So who are those other 4 women? I haven't had a chance to dive into it to see how much research that there is out there, how much we know about these other women. It just mentions that they're artists, but what kind of artists? What is their dynamic, and why was it that Klint was the one out of the 5 of them that was chosen to actually complete the paintings for the temple? How did these women meet Hilma? Develop those characters out, so we're trying on a little bit of historical fiction here. Then put them all together on the night when Klint is commissioned by this entity Amalil to do the paintings for the temple. Can they see this entity, or do they only hear it? How exactly does it explain this commission to Klint and this group known as the 5? What are their initial reactions? Do any of them freak out and say, nope, I'm out? Like, I imagine this being a small scale version of Noah and the Ark, but with art. We'll call it Hilma and the Art. But I'd love for you to write a scene depicting in detail how you envision that this all went down in a really historical fiction way. I am currently working on creating a downloadable lesson plan on Hilma Klint, including her bio, some other fun facts about her, the exercises that I've shared with you here, and more. All of these lessons will be available on the website that I have in the works on a pay-what-you-can monthly subscription model. So if you want to support me in getting that project off the ground, you can find the link to donate in the caption for this video.